Hey everyone, I Can Understand here, and today we're going to be talking about why Derpy was the worst choice for mayor and how it's affected the current economy, how people are bypassing the auction house being disabled, and how he's affecting everything else such as dungeons. Let's get into it. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so first off, we're going to be going over how he's affected the auction house. And that's how he's affected the auction house. He's closed it, and it's only coming back in about 4 days, 20 hours. Nice. And the and it's gonna suck because we can't buy anything else. All item prices after he gets out of office are going to skyrocket because, well, most of them. Because for dungeons, you're going to be having like people running those constantly, and we're gonna be talking about how the double HP affects them later. But right now, the auction house, everything's gonna drop because people are doing dungeons and farming skills, which means that when they come back to the auction house to sell their stuff, everyone's gonna be putting them up for extremely low prices, which means there's going to be an influx of items, which in turn increases an influx in price. Because of this influx in price, that means that, well, it's not going to be an influx, it's going to deflux down, but because of that, you can get items for extremely cheap. I believe you can probably get a chest plate, like a Shadow Assassin chest plate, for about 20 million coins, and it usually goes for about 40, so Auction Flipper is going to have a field day with that. And I've seen a lot of people calling this the Black Friday of the auction house, and I'd have to agree with them because as soon as it comes back online, every item on there is going to be severely slashed in currency. But people are going to be buying them up because they haven't had the auction house in about 7 days or such. So, you know. So how can you take advantage of the auction house? Well, it's quite simple. You need to save up money, and the only way to get money right now is to sell minions. But I gotta talk about that later. But save up money and then wait for the auction house to reopen. As soon as it reopens, wait a couple of minutes or an hour, because it's going to take a while for people to actually realize it's back online and actually put up the stuff for auction. Which means on the bin, Shadow Assassin chest plates are going to drop, everything's going to drop. So if you want to get good like dungeon gear really, really cheap, that's how you do it. And for certain things like cat's flowers, those things are probably going to increase in price because not a lot of it's being put into the economy because not a lot of people buy them. Which means as soon as it comes back online, items are going to fluctuate in price heavily. And you want to take advantage of that because things like cat's flowers are going to increase in price, but things like Shadow Assassin chest plates are going to decrease in price. Alright, so next we'll be going over the turbo minions and the double mob's HP and the more skills. So first of all, we'll be going over turbo minions and how they affect the Bazaar. So because of the double output, everything on the Bazaar is also dropping in price. Let's take a look at one of the most popular minions, which is going to be Snow. As you can see, Snow is starting to actually decrease in price a little. As you can see, it used to be around 600 coins, and now it's going for about 596. Now, because Derpy was just elected, this isn't going to be a massive change just yet, but as the days go on, it will be, trust me. Now, if we take it something like optimal farming experience and such as like diamonds, the classic diamond, as you can see, these aren't going to fluctuate a lot because the set price is at the Bazaar, and that's why a lot of the NPC stuff is not going to change that much. But for things like massive fluctuations such as farming, this is going to drop immensely, even more so than the farming update. As you can see, it was going for about 259. Now it's going for less than 2. Like, this is going to affect the Bazaar in such a massive way because everyone's going to be using minions with the double output, and that'll actually lower how much money you get. So it's not that worth it in terms of, having double output. Now, how can you get around this? Just save up your materials and sell when he finally gets unelected, because then you actually make some money. But you have to wait on it, because you have to wait for prices to go back up. You can't just sell immediately after he's unelected. But once you do that, and people start selling to the Bazaar and buying and such, prices will go back up naturally. And lastly, how will this affect Bazaar flipping? Well, in terms of currency, it's not going to change that much just because everything is being lowered at the same time. That means that Bazaar flipping is still a very viable method to making money. Now, I am not using the Bazaar flipping method because I actually do want to run some dungeons, but as you can see my purse, I am completely broke because I bought up some items and I'm currently trying to flip them, so, I gotta wait on that. Besides that, you have to wait on the Bazaar because prices, when they fluctuate back up, if you buy a ton of items from the Bazaar at a lower price, you can make a ton of money in selling them back. So that's probably another viable method for making money in this update. Now we'll be looking at the last two skills, which is more skills and double mob HP. Now these are terrible because double mob HP means everything in dungeons is going to be twice as hard to kill. I mean, that's not a problem for the more stronger players, but the lower level players who can't one-shot them are going to have a much harder time now, especially with skeleton masters, because those things will shred you in an instant. Now, how can you bypass this? You can't. You just have to, there's going to be a lot more range builds now because of the double HP. Berserkers aren't going to have as much of a fun time now, because that Bloodlust is going to be twice as hard to affect. If you can just barely one-shot them before this update, that means you aren't able to one-shot them anymore, which means you should probably do a floor below, which is going to severely nerf how much XP you get and how much, money you can gain from it. Now, you might be wondering, does the more skills affect dungeons? By what I can tell, it doesn't, which means not only is more people going to be grinding dungeons just because there's nothing else to do, it's not even helping with your XP. So what does the 50% more skill XP affect? Every other skill except for, I think, social and catacombs. Those are the only two it doesn't affect. Now, you might be thinking, oh, okay, I can just grind skills. You're wrong, because if you want to grind combat, guess what? Everything has twice as much HP. You want to grind forging? Guess what? Everyone else is doing it, so you're going to have a harder time actually doing it. The only way to grind skills efficiently is to find your own private lobby. And that's extremely difficult in, Hypixel Skyblock, because everyone is farming now. They're either farming at the burn, or they're farming over at the forging. Everyone's trying to get their skills up because of this update, and they have nothing else to do. Which is also going to play into how the Reserve prices are getting affected, because wood's actually going to go massively down as more and more people start doing it, because they have nothing else to do. If we take a look at the prices already, they are starting to drop slightly. They used to be about 9, and now they're about 8. Which means it's dropped about a coin in price, which can be massive in terms of if you're selling tens of thousands at a time. Now, is there any way to bypass, all of this currency getting dropped and getting more skill XP without other people stealing it? Not really. The only way would be minions, which is actually a good way of getting skill XP now because of the double output. It doubles how much XP you get as well. So, for minions, if you put a Hyper Catalyst on them, you can probably get about times 8 in terms of efficiency. And that brings us to our last stop, which is Hyper Catalysts and Catalysts themselves. As you can see, Enchanted Lava Buckets have dropped slightly in price. Hamster Wheels have skyrocketed to 50,000. Foul Flesh has also skyrocketed. And Catalyst and Hyper Catalyst have tripled in price. Tripled. Which means now these things are going to be going for much more. And because the auction house is closed, you can't buy up crystal fragments, turn them into catalysts, and then resell them. Which means this price is only going to go up. Which actually makes the most efficient way to do dragons is to shoot the crystals. Let me repeat that. If you get a protector dragon, the best way to earn money from this update is by shooting the crystals. Why is that the most efficient way? I don't know, but it is now, because 150,000 per crystal means if you can get about 10 per fight, that's 1.5 million coins you're looking at. Now, lastly, we're going to be talking about how people have bypassed the auction house. So they've actually created personal discords for selling and buying items. That's stupid. And if you want to find them, you could probably find them on the forums, because there's so many of them. People are just bypassing the auction house because people want all these new items and such. And the auction house is closed now, which means people are creating discords and such. It's like if an Iron Man profile decided to cheat and actually trade with people, but that's impossible for them. But we can, which is why people are using discords to bypass the auction house, which might be against the rules. I don't know. You'd have to look into that. But I'm not going to join one, obviously, for reasons. I don't want to get banned if it is, against the rules. So I'm going to stay away from that. And you probably should, too, until you know it's actually completely not against the rules. Because there's probably a rule or two in place for bypassing certain stuff. And I feel like that would fall under it. And I would stay away from those discords unless you want to, have a chance of getting banned. So it's up to you. And lastly, how will this affect it after the update? So when Derpy is finally unelected, everything in the auction house is going to drop in price, like I said. The bazaar is going to skyrocket in price. I've already said all that. Now, we're going to be looking at how it's going to affect dungeons. Now, because the double mob HP will be removed, more people will go into dungeons, which means it'll be easier to find a party if you don't have any friends like myself. And if you just want to, grind out dungeons after the update, it's going to be great because so many people are going to be doing it because they're like, okay, so I haven't been able to grind catacombs, which means I'm going to do that now. which is actually going to be extremely helpful for anyone who's actually trying to get like floor completions done and you can't find a good team. Now, how will this affect grinding skills? After the update, less people will be grinding skills because they've reached, grinding 50, because they've been grinding so hard to get it. And let's say I was grinding skills, which I'm not gonna do, but let's just say I was. If I was grinding skills and I got to like farming 50, there would be no need to farm these anymore. I could just sit at my island and do other stuff. So it's the same thing with foraging and combat. People aren't gonna be doing it as much. So you can actually profit off of this by doing it yourself and actually getting more XP. Because it's only a 50% bonus, that just means you have to make up for 50% of the time. And because everyone's sweating skills, I would say waiting for the update to be over is going to be a better thing. But don't do it right away. You always have to wait on updates like these. Because if you don't wait, that means that as soon as you go and grind skills, more people are going to be there because they think, oh yeah, they think the exact same way. Which is like, that's mob mentality. So the moment when people think that it's over and they can go grind skills, there's actually going to be more people than there is now. So you want to stay away from that until it's finally over. Now, when will it be over? Maybe a couple hours after the update, because people will realize, oh wait, I can't do this, and then that's your time. You go in, and then you just grind skills for a little bit. And that's how you make more skill XP than this current update. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode and how Derpy was probably the worst mayor choice you could have picked. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.